Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the South Florida Tribune podcast. My name is Scott Morgan, off the Motor City Mad Mouth, along with Lynn Lessell and Candy Ebling. Glad to have you ladies on tonight.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
All right, well, we have a compact, dynamite 30-minute broadcast, and I think this is about a subject here that many of us can relate to. Ever heard of that thing called Mother's Day?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow, that's what we is talking about tonight. So go ahead, Lynn, lead off.
I just, when we talk about me, we talk about doing something special for ourselves, but when we talk about Mother's Day, we talk about what could we do special for our moms. And so I'm wondering, how everybody kind of spent yesterday with their mom. I know a lot of people did virtual visits. Actually, I spent some time on Facebook going through just my timeline, and it was amazing to me how many different Zoom room captures were actually posted of families getting together yesterday. And it wasn't even so much that it was Mother's Day. It was really like just using that as an excuse for families to just get together. And I thought that was pretty cool. Did you guys get to do that yesterday?
We actually did a FaceTime call with Scott's mom. So yes, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, my mother right now is currently suffering from COPD, and I know that my gut feeling is she won't be around for next Mother's Day. Wish I could say otherwise, but why not? We have another. Thankfully, she made it through another one. It was great for the 10, 15 minutes we had with her, and, I made her happy, and we certainly were quite pleased as well. And Candy went out there and sent her an e-card?
Yeah, his mom can't be exposed to any germs or anything like this at this point. She can't pick up anything,
Yeah.
So instead of mailing her anything or having anything delivered, we sent her an e-card because I figured she can't get sick off an e-card. Unless it's a bad e-card.
Yeah, no trip to the Postal Service
that's
today.
Nice, though.
Yeah, no trip to the post office this week. This year.
And that's okay, because you know what? They have some pretty nice e-cards.
They do, yes. Yes.
And I'm sure you made a beautiful one.
Yeah, it talked about, the fact that we wish we could be spending it with her, but we'll spend it virtually with her, and we're there in spirit. So, sending a hug and a kiss across the lines.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm sure you got to put a big smile on her face.
Yes.
Yeah, as much as we were able to. But I also did some texting.
There you go. Well,
I did some text messaging as well.
You also
text her, so I was able to send some text messages.
So, are there any other special moms in your world that you had the chance to celebrate with yesterday?
Well, unfortunately, my mom passed away a couple of years ago. But one of the things that I can share about her, well, there's numerous things, but one of the things is she's actually in a mausoleum, and so she's not on the first level, she's not on the second level. But her request was, when they bought the mausoleum, is that at the time, the top level, which they're not on, you could not put flowers on. She's on the fourth level, and so she always said that she wanted flowers on her gravesite, and that's why she didn't choose the top level. And so my brother went over to the gravesite and put flowers on for all of us. So I know my mom is looking down from heaven and smiling, because it was definitely her request.
Yeah, what I also did is on my personal Facebook page, I went out there and listed several individuals, including Candy. After all, we have fur babies. And I thought it was nice to be able to point out the respect I have. I even have a young niece who's a brand new mother. And, I want to make sure all my sister-in-laws were addressed, and the key people. But first and foremost, my grandma Sophie, who to me is the greatest person of all time. My mother was on that list. So, it's funny, we talked about last week how we talked about pets, but I don't think fur babies get recognized enough in terms of being parents. And I know we talked about that briefly last week. No reason why we shouldn't build on that and include it here as well.
And it's funny you should mention that, Scott, honestly, because I was going to ask you if your fur babies did anything special for Candy yesterday. So I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's great.
Well,
and I really think it's...
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly wonderful that you did reach out to your other family members who are mothers and recognize them. That's very special.
Yeah, one of our cats is so smart that he's like a Harvard cat. I mean, Candy tried to pull a fast one on him yesterday. Go ahead and say about that.
Yesterday, we keep them. They have their own cat room that we give them a room in the house that whenever we need to leave or anything like that, we put them in there only because one of the times we left, one of our fur babies decided to flood the place. So we have given them their own bedroom. And typically when we have them out and about and we want to put them back in the bedroom for whatever reason, we need to go out or whatever, and typically I'll feed them. And that's my kind of cue. Well, the other night I wanted them back in the bedroom, so but it wasn't feeding time, but I kind of took my feed bag with me, and so they rushed into the room, and then I didn't feed them. So the next day, my Bucky was a little bit like, wait a minute, you tricked me last time, I'm not going to fall for it again this time. So he likes to play with my mind. He is so smart.
Yeah, and actually, when we put him away, we were playing Yahtzee because we get extremely competitive with that. But I call him the Harvard cat.
Oh.
I call him the Harvard cat is what I do. He's so smart that I don't think I've ever had an animal that smart as Bucky is. But, again, you had a cat
I think that's great.
You had a cat smarter than you. How would you react to it?
I think I had a dog that might have almost been smarter than me, so I kind of get it. And I know I've spoken to quite a few people who, and a lot of people I know actually consider their pets family members, and I know what that feels like from when I had a dog. And so, it's like their kids, so Mother's Day applies there too. And it's great when you do that. Now for me, I was a mom. I'm a mom myself, so I have two kids, and then I have my extended kids because of their wives and a step granddaughter. And you know what? It was just nice. I got the calls yesterday, and they check on me all the time, and it's just nice to have the extra day. But I think it's real important that we do celebrate the power of a mother's love, because it sounds to me like your moms really had a very big impact on your life.
Oh yeah.
Is that true?
That's probably an understatement, Lynn.
Yeah. I was thinking understatement's probably the right adjective for it.
Well, if you could think of one thing, I'm sure there's many, but the most important thing out of all of them, that if you were able to thank your mom today, what would you celebrate her for? What one thing might you celebrate her for?
Well, I would say she's a very resilient woman. She's a warrior. I've learned a lot.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, well, I've learned a lot from her in the way she goes about promoting her projects, and the fact that she had a trademark, and I've actually invested to try to get one as well. So I think it's important. But
nice.
And I think if I were to say there were so many things, but I think first and foremost was just her support of the whole family. Whether it be coming to any and all of our, sporting events. If we just needed a shoulder to cry on, she was always there to support us. If I had a cooking question, she was there to support that. She just supported all of us. She was the communicator and kept us all in contact with each other. And even if we didn't call each other, me and my siblings, my mom was there to tell us what was happening and what was going on. So I think just her supporting all of us.
Well, and I'll take it a step further. When I first met Candy, and I was in the hospital for the better part of a week, my future mother-in-law, I viewed her that once I got serious with Candy, called me 2-3 times a day. So talking about being the new kid on the block, judging by those phone calls, I wasn't new. I was the kid on the block, and it was pretty good. I mean, what can I tell you? The only thing I wish would have happened, she would have been at our wedding, but we had a photo of her and my grandmother there, so that was as good as anything. But yeah, there's no question that mothers impact their kids in ways that nobody ever could describe, and you don't have enough airtime on this broadcast to be able to come up with those stories, so you're lucky we're taking the pick of the litter here and trying to bring it to the forefront.
Well, and I appreciate that. I really do. And I want to share with you the reason why I actually asked that question. You know, if you could think of one thing that was really impactful to you. And that's because somebody recently shared with me that they had heard a motivational podcast by a gentleman that they listen to frequently. And in that podcast, he talked about a letter that Thomas Edison's mom had received from his school when he was a kid. And I actually looked up more information about the story. And when Thomas Edison, and we all know Thomas Edison did invent the light bulb, right? So when he was 7, his teacher, this is back in the 1800s, his teacher actually sent a letter home with him to his mom, and the mom read the letter, and the teacher had actually told the mother that Thomas could no longer come to the school anymore because he was addled and had like scrambled brains, and his behavior was erratic. And the mom was just taken aback. She herself was a teacher that wasn't currently working, and she believed in her son and believed that he was smart, and she loved him so much that she decided to homeschool him. And because of that love, that impacted his whole world. And he actually, as an adult, accredited his mother's belief in him for the genius that he became and all the contributions that he made to our world as we know it. And I really started thinking to myself, wow, in this crisis that we're going through, I know so many moms or dads who are in the situation of having to help homeschool their kids. Because in order to keep the kids current with their grades, the teachers are doing things online, and lucky for us in our technical age that a lot of the teachers are actually talking to the kids over Zoom calls. And then they have their assignments, but it's still up to the parents to make sure that the kids are doing these homeschooled hours. And how do we know just what an opportunity this could be? The power of a mother's love, of a parent's love, can really inspire their children's potential. So we are going through some tough times right now, but I think this example of Thomas Edison and his mom, you never know what your child is going to create going forward in the world. And so I think it's just an amazing story about the power of a mother's love. What's your take on that?
I completely agree. I mean, I guess I didn't know that about Thomas Edison, so that is kind of surprising to me. I'm surprised that back in the day that they would have sent him home and talked about homeschooling, because I guess I didn't realize how long homeschooling had been around. But a mother always has that insight that she has about their kid, and she just knows how to, I don't know if it's push the right buttons or say the right things to help develop, but yet let their son or daughter develop the way that they're supposed to. She doesn't push, but she gets out of the child just what the child needs, and that's amazing. That power that she has.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Candy. Honestly, until it was brought to my attention, I never knew this about Thomas Edison either. And I suppose there's a lot that goes back in the history books about a lot of the famous people that really contributed to our world that we probably don't know. Mm-hmm. But it just seemed like a really interesting story. And if you go back to those mid-1800s and think about, wow, that could have gone either way for a 7-year-old.
Right.
The impact that could have had. And she did not let her son know why he couldn't go back to school. Mm-hmm. So, it was just like, this is going to be a good thing. We're going to do this. We're going to do this together. And wow, what happened from there? I just think it's just really pretty cool. And I'm glad to be able to share it, because I'm hoping that maybe a lot of our listeners are learning a little bit something that they didn't know about somebody famous in our history.
Yeah, don't be surprised during these virtual times of homeschooling or being homeschooled is going to be more of a prominent thing down the line. You just never know. We're finding out so many things during this pandemic here that we'll probably be using a lot more because our hand was forced.
Yeah, that's probably true. And there's a lot of people out there that I actually know who, before this whole crisis came to be, made that choice of homeschooling their kids. And so, that's a pretty tall order to take on, and I commend all those moms that have taken that on even before this crisis. So, that's just an amazing thing to celebrate. No better time than Mother's Day to do that. So, like we've said, every week, life doesn't throw us something that's predictable. So, I'm wondering if our listeners can actually think of a time in the past when their mom's belief in them and the support that they gave them made all the difference in something that was unpredictable that happened to them. And can you think of a time in the past that may have happened to you?
Oh, I'll tell you what, my mother, I've learned over the years and through her actions in the past that, for me, she's always had a strong belief in what I've been able to do. When my family was in the home improvement business, she said she actually made such a scene over at the place that she shut the door, closed down business, and told my brother and father that he's going to go ahead and sell windows whether you like it or not. I know he's going to be good. In fact, I know he'll even be better. So, and it's safe to say I sold it for quite a while. So she put me in a situation where she believed in me, and I used that as motivation to prove the other two clowns wrong, to be honest with you, and prove her right. So, but that's okay.
That's
but
awesome.
Not that they don't
That's
believe
awesome.
in me anyhow.
Candy, can you think of one thing?
I can think
I'm sorry, Scott. What'd you say?
Yeah, not that they don't believe me, but my mother, when the fuss she caused down over at the home improvement business, she certainly knows. I know you can do anything, and she's the most strong-minded person on the planet. You can find me somebody stronger than that, then go ahead and do it. Send me a text message or an email.
That sounds good.
Yeah, that'll be the ultimate challenge for you, Lynn.
So,
yeah, I know. Get a kick out of it. If you met the woman, you'd understand my situation. But go ahead, Candy.
So I would say one of the times that I remember is I was in college. It was my first semester of my junior year, so my third year in. You're really into your major at that point. At least I was into the major I started school for. And there was one course that was what I would consider Are You Serious? Weed Me Out course that a lot of people had troubles with. And I took the first test. I didn't do well. I took the second test. I didn't do well at all. And I had a choice to make, and I called my mom. I was crying. I was not living at home. I was living on campus. I said, Mom, I'm not going to pass this class. I have, a day or two here to decide. I can still drop it and not take the grade, but if I can't pass this class, I can't continue with the major that I thought I wanted to go for. And she just sat there and she listened to everything. She let me talk. She asked me questions. And that night, I literally dropped the class, changed my major, and the rest is history because I switched my major and I can't be happier. How about you,
wow.
Lynn?
You know, me?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's a good question. How about me? The one thing that I would never really forget was how to make something really boring a lot of fun. And I can't forget whenever I was a little kid, and whenever we used to have to clean, like what kid really wants to have to clean? And we all contributed to chores, but my mom would just put on dancing music and we would dance while we cleaned. And so it was fun. Mm-hmm. It was fun. It was energetic. It was full of laughter. It was full of smiles. And that was, it's just a nice thing to look back on. And, it's one of the things that I really wanted to bring forward into my life with my kids. And it was always about making things fun. Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of things that don't seem real fun most of the time. But if we make that little extra effort to really make them fun, make things feel more like an adventure. I know last week we talked about how laughter can boost your immune system. So, hey, I guess that must have kept the kid in me all these years because, there was a lot of laughter and smiles with all that dance music. And like, you never run out of things to clean, do you? So
that's true.
This way you can never run out of fun.
Especially nowadays.
I used to do the same things with my kids.
So where did you get that? Did you get it from the Mayo Clinic? Is that where you found that out?
The laughter boosts your immune system?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I got that. There's a lot of different resources for that, and a lot of different ways that, information that you can get. The funny thing was I was actually listening to motivational speakers, and I heard them actually make a comment about it. And I wanted to make sure that I actually researched and got the foundation of that. So when I went on the Mayo Clinic website, it actually says there that, laughter relieves physical tension because it reduces the release of stress hormones, usually cortisol, and boosts your immune system. And when you boost your immune system, it builds your resilience to disease. And I was like, who would have ever thought that finding something funny could be so healthy?
It kind of reminds me of the movie. You remember, Lynn, seeing the movie Patch Adams with Robin Williams, and he
yes.
builds the hospital?
Yes.
That kind of makes me reminded of that movie.
Yeah. So, laughter is a great thing. And, speaking of laughter, it was yesterday, and I mentioned to you before we got on the call, I actually had an impromptu Zoom wedding. And the reason why that happened was because the wedding was scheduled to be on Mother's Day out of the country. It was a destination wedding. And so, obviously, because of all that's going on, the wedding had to be postponed. And obviously, we don't know till when. So, the bride's sister got together with the bride's future sister-in-law, and they created this Zoom event. And the toast that the bride-to-be sister maid was so comical, so hilarious, that it was just like a party. And they played music, they did toasts. There was a whole bunch of moms, so it was a Mother's Day celebration too. And of course, for the bride's mom and the groom's mom, and any other mom that was on the call, there were some other people, and it was so much fun.
Sounds like it.
It could have been a day that kind of came and went, but it didn't. So again, other ways for lots of laughter, celebrations of moms, celebrations of old memories and new beginnings, and it was just a nice way to spend the day. So,
all right, Lynn.
That kind of sums it up for me.
Anything you want to close out with, Lynn, before we go ahead and promote what's ahead here on the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network? How people get a hold of you? Go ahead.
Well, absolutely. Before I say that, I just want to ask everybody to just think of one new thing that they can do tomorrow that can make them smile, maybe even give them a giggle, and try to think of what they can do to actually make sure that happens. And if anybody has any questions about anything we talked about today or any requests for topics, I'd love for them to contact me. It's Why. My email is lynn@itswhy.com. You can always get all my contact information on the South Florida Tribune and read my weekly Me Monday article on the South Florida Tribune. Find me under contributing writers, and I thank you and Candy so much for that opportunity and your partnership.
You're welcome. All right, well, let's talk about what lies ahead with us. But before I go ahead and do that, okay, well, actually, we'll let people know how they can follow us. If they go to Twitter, you can follow me at Scoop, SCOOP. If you have 5 fingers on a hand or whatever, including the thumb, then you'll know how many threes you got. 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. And then you can also follow us on Twitter at Tribune South. And I repeat, at Tribune South. On Facebook, go ahead and like us at South Florida Tribune. A like will get it done, and then you'll get updates. Instagram, South Florida Tribune as well. We have a YouTube channel that we would like you to subscribe to. Once again, you guessed it, South Florida Tribune. The website to find Lynn's columns is www.southfloridatribune.com. Our email address is southfloridatribune@gmail.com, and you can reach me on LinkedIn under my name, Scott Morganroth. Some of the other shows on the network include the Sports Exchange, which you're going to have 2 episodes tonight. I'll get to those in a moment. The South Florida Tribune podcast, for which you're listening to, and there'll be a lot of other non-sports related content coming up real soon. Lynn, is just the beginning of what figures to be a very aggressive non-sports campaign to get more and more people out there so everybody can learn a lot. We have 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, The Real and the Rare by Xavier McKnight, one of our best young journalists, Fantasy Football with myself and Ryan Schoolroot, and last but not least, Motorman and Rude Dog. So up ahead tonight on the broadcast, we'll have the Sports Exchange. Rick Curdy will be following us on deck. What Rick and I are going to talk about is how MMA, mixed martial arts, otherwise known as UFC, is breaking the sports drought. Who will be next to break that sports drought? And then finally, boxing, a serious COVID-19 potential threat with the gloves. Rick and I will address that. And then later on after that, right around 9 o'clock Eastern Time, bear in mind all these broadcasts will be released shortly. David Levin and Mike Santos talk about boxing as well as UFC 249, which took place in David's hometown of Jacksonville. Just to let you know how you can reach these broadcasts, you can reach them on Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, CastBox, Podcast Addict, Deezer, and Podchaser. So we certainly gave you a mouthful there, but Lynn, once again, good work, and we'll continue to promote the brand in as many ways as possible, right, Lynn? To make sure that we certainly feel that
absolutely
we can convey your message to the most amount of people, because I know we have good philosophies how to do that. And our goal is to make sure that we're both as efficient as we can, because you have a great column and want to make sure that we bring that column to life. So once again, Lynn, well done, and we look forward to another edition of Me Monday following next Sunday. And just looking out ahead, there will be no Me Monday broadcast on Memorial Day. So whether Lynn decides to take a day off from Memorial Day or not, I'll be on the road. So we ain't doing these remotely, sweetheart. So,
all right. Well, we'll definitely talk more about that next week.
No,
and it's always a pleasure spending some time with you and Candy.
No doubt about it. So on behalf of Lynn Lessell, my name is Scott Morgan, Roth Motor City Madmouth, and
my name's Candy Ebling. Thank you, everybody.
We'll see you the next time. Good evening, everybody. And once again, 2 episodes of the Sports Exchange are next.